What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer. I love talking about movies and I love ranking movies, and that is what we're here to do today because the summer of 2025 at the movies has officially come to an end, and with summer behind us, it's time for me to stop and take a look back at all of the brand new releases that I had a chance to see in summer of 2025 and rank them from the worst to the best. Now you might be wondering what movies are considered summer released films in 25, and that would essentially be anything from the very beginning of May to the very end of August. And those are the movies that I'm going to focus on. I did have a chance to see 33 brand new films in that time period, and so I'm very excited to put those on this list, to rank them for you guys, talk about them with you. But you know, this isn't just about my list, it's about your list as well. And so I would love to know what brand new movies you had a chance to see in summer of 2025 and how you would rank them yourself, so let me know in that comment section down below. Before getting into the list, a couple of movies that I really wanted to see but I didn't have a chance to, and so they won't be on this list today. They will be on a list in the future because I will watch them before the end of the year. The first one is called Strange Harvest. This movie released a couple of weeks ago, but it was just a limited release and I didn't have a chance to see it, and it's currently, as of the recording of this video, not streaming anywhere. I was actually holding off on making this video hoping it would hit Amazon Prime. I'm willing to pay full price because it looks really good, but yeah, I missed it in theaters, and so it won't be on this list today, and that's too bad. Another movie I really wanted to see but I didn't have a chance is The Surfer. This film is currently streaming, but you have to pay for it, and I just feel like it's a movie that I could wait till it's on a free streaming service or a streaming service I've already paid for, and so I'm not going to pay to see it yet, so I haven't seen The Surfer yet. I hope it's a fun time. Again, it'll be on a list in the future. A couple of bad movies that people have told me I need to see, I need to review for the channel. One would be Megan 2.0. Didn't see this one in theaters because it looked so bad, and then people kind of reinforced my feelings on this when I saw reviews for it saying it was a horrible movie. It tanked at the box office, so I skipped it in theaters and I'm not willing to pay for it online. I know it'll eventually be on Peacock, and so that's where I'll check it out down the line. And the other bad movie that people have told me to check out is War of the Worlds. People are saying it's the worst movie ever made. I don't know if that's the case, but I have seen some clips for it. It does look pretty abysmal, but it notably will not be on this list because I just haven't had the time to sit down and watch it. And it's not even the time at this point. It's just like the time to sit down and watch a bad movie, like a movie I know I'll be hating the entire time I'm watching it. You got to be in the right mindset for that. And since it's released, I just haven't been in that mindset. And the final movie that will not be on this list that I actually really do want to include is a movie that hasn't released yet. It comes out August 29th, and it is Caught Stealing. It should technically be on this list. I should wait for it to come out, but I really wanted to get some content out to you guys because it's been a kind of a dry couple of weeks on my channel, so I wanted to get some content out. So I have not seen Caught Stealing yet. Again, I will see it, I will review it, and it will be on a list in the future. Now guys, before getting into my video, the last thing I have to do here is say that if this is the first time you found my channel, well, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. Check out all the different content on my channel. Whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, or even ranked list videos, I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. All right, let's get into summer of 2025 movies ranked from the worst to the best.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
Now, as I stated before, I saw 33 brand new films in the summer months of 2025, and at number 33, we have Another Simple Favor. This was an Amazon Prime released film. It was a follow-up to a film called A Simple Favor that starred Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. Both of those actresses come back for this film, and I was actually really excited for it because I enjoyed the first film. It was a thriller whodunit movie, so I was hoping for more of that out of this film, and it just goes in these weird, convoluted directions that it really doesn't need to do. The movie opens up by telling you, hey, listen, anything you think is logical, it's not going to make sense in this film, while trying to take itself serious. Like, it's not going so far out that it's like, hey, come on, you know it's not serious. No, it's all set in like normal times. It's set in normal settings where you don't have anything weird going on. You just have these wild, outlandish plot points that you just have to go along with, and it doesn't make for a fun viewing. You open up this film with Blake Lively's character threatening Anna Kendrick's character, blackmailing her in front of a bunch of cameras, in front of a bunch of people, and like clearly she's blackmailing her, And Anna Kendrick's character is like, well, I guess I gotta go along with it. And so the next thing you know, they're on a plane going to another country so that Blake Lively's character can get married. And then people start showing up murdered. And you're like, well, who could it be? And that's where the whodunit element's supposed to come in. And maybe had they stuck the landing on who was the person killing people, then I could have forgiven some of the sort of outlandish stuff that happens in this film. But no, they don't stick the landing at all. It's another just wild plot point that comes out of nowhere. This was an abysmal viewing, a movie that I don't recommend to anyone. One of the worst movies I've seen this entire year, but definitely the worst movie I saw in summer of 2025. At number 32, we have a film that will probably be my first controversial film on this list, especially being this low, and it is The Phoenician Scheme, directed by Wes Anderson. I will say right off the bat that visually this movie was beautiful to look at. I know Wes Anderson has a ton of fans. People have told me I'm crazy for thinking that this movie wasn't very good, but I just don't blend well with Wes Anderson's directing style. Whether it's the way he tells his stories, the dry humor that he injects throughout the film, or just the fact that all of the actors and actresses working for him, who are great actors and actresses, just come off as robotic. None of them feel like they're giving performances. They feel like they're first-time students in a play, and it just comes off as really rough for me. And I feel that way about every Wes Anderson film I've seen before, so maybe I shouldn't have expected anything else out of it. And I think what this movie did that really solidified it as one of the worst movies I saw in summer is basically just said to me that Wes Anderson is just not my cup of tea. Going forward, I'm not going to seek out his films. Going forward, I'm not going to watch his movies. Like, even if it's free to watch on a streaming service like The Phoenician Scheme was when I checked it out, it's not something I'm going to rush to see, and I may just skip it entirely. So for all those reasons, The Phoenician Scheme is number 32 on my list. At number 31, we have the long-awaited Fear Street Prom Queen, and I say long-awaited because I was really looking forward to this for a very long time. We had 3 Fear Street films come out, go directly to Netflix, and they were awesome. I loved the way they told that story. It involved time travel and horror and all the elements that I really enjoy in a fun sort of throwback film, and I loved all those elements and had different time periods, and I liked all the time periods they went to. So there was a lot to love about that original trilogy, and so when I heard they were making Fear Street Prom Queen, taking another R.L. Stine Fear Street book and making it into a film, well, I got excited about that. And you get it, it's just the most basic plot ever where they try to throw 80s nostalgia at you while giving you the most easy to figure out killer situation that I've ever seen in a film. And I mean that. I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I know there was a moment in this movie, definitely before the halfway mark, where I was like, yeah, that's the killer. And then 100% that turned out to be the killer. And that was so disappointing. And that's probably why this movie's at 31, because it's so disappointing coming off of those 3 Fear Street films that I really enjoyed, that I really loved watching, and I had so much anticipation for this movie that it was probably the most disappointing movie I saw of the entire summer, and that's why it's at number 31. Coming in at number 30 is another movie that really disappointed me, not as much as Fear Street, but it did disappoint me. It's directed by one of my favorite directors, Guy Ritchie, and it is The Fountain of Youth. And so when I heard Guy Ritchie was directing an adventure film that was going directly to Apple Plus, starring John Krasinski, starring Natalie Portman, I got excited about that. In the film, both John Krasinski and Natalie Portman's characters are brother and sister. They go on this adventure together where they have to go all over the world trying to find things. And there was maybe one scene off of that entire movie that I really enjoyed, and that was when they had to bring up a piece of the Lusitania, which is a real ship that sank, and so they had to float it to the top of the water, search through it so they could get an artifact. I thought that was really cool, and that's what I wish the movie had been more of. But instead, they would go on these adventures, and then they would take like these really long 20-minute, 30-minute breaks where they would just talk to each other about life and growing up. And at first it was like, okay, they're getting us to know these characters. That's fine. I don't mind them doing this. But then they did it every single time. You'd have this big action set piece. And again, most of them didn't really work for me. You just had that one with the ship that I really liked. But you'd have these big set pieces, and then the pace would just completely crawl again as they bickered with each other like brothers and sisters do. And so the movie didn't work for me. Again, coming from Guy Ritchie, it was a huge disappointment. I was hoping for more out of him, but that's what we ended up getting. So Fountain of Youth is number 30. And at number 29, we have the film Eenie Meenie. This is a Hulu released film and one of the most recent films I've seen on this list. And so if there was going to be recency bias, it's not there for this movie. The movie does star Samara Weaving, and she is the highlight of this film, but the film is about her being trained as a teenager to become a very skilled wheelman to help people get away from heists and bank robberies. However, it time jumps past all of that training and shows that she's gotten out of that life, and now she has something that's bringing her back in. The problem with that setup for the movie is that you don't get to live with that character at all while they're learning the trade. You're just told, hey, she can do this. You just see a tiny snip of that at the beginning, and then you're just time jumped so many years where she's an adult now and got out of the life that you're just supposed to go along with the fact that she did have all this skill, she did have all this training, and she left that life behind her. Okay, maybe I can get on board with that if it's going to be a fun plot from there, and it does start to be fun. You've got this situation where she's drawn back into this criminal world that's led by a gangster played by Andy Garcia. They say, you got to rob this casino, you got to get this done for us, or we're going to kill your ex-boyfriend. She's like, all right, I'm going to do it. She signs up, she does it. And then they throw all logic out the window when she decides to rob the bank without a mask on. They do say at one point, oh, we got a way to blind the cameras, you'll be good. But that doesn't account for all of the people that just see her face in broad daylight, one of the cops shooting directly at her at one point, who are going to be able to point her out in a lineup, or they're going to be able to say, hey, sketch artist, I can give you a complete description of what this person looks like, because they decided to not wear a mask while robbing a bank. I've seen the Ocean's 11 movies. I know how casinos are based on those movies. But the point is, you can't rob anywhere in 2025 and not wear a mask and expect me to just go along with the idea that, oh yeah, they had no idea who she was, and when she gets away with it at the end, she's actually just going to move into a house down the block and everything's fine. No, somebody would have arrested her. They would have found her eventually. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So again, throwing logic out of the window in a movie where you were already telling me that, oh yeah, just trust us, she's a wheelman, she knows what she's doing. It irritated me. At number 28, we have the film I Don't Understand You. This was actually a really fun premise, a fun setup to the film, and I was hoping they were going to stick the landing, and they really didn't, unfortunately. The movie stars Nick Kroll as a character who, with his husband, is going over to Italy, basically on a final vacation before they start a family. You find out that they're going to adopt a kid, and they're really excited about that, but they want one more vacation by themselves, so they go to Italy for this vacation, and when they get there, they accidentally commit murder, and that can lead to some funny premises, and that's where I was hoping this was going to go. But then it just gets darker and bleaker for these characters as they go along, as they keep killing people either out of accident or not understanding the language those people are speaking. And again, those situations can be tense or they can be funny, but they can't really be both. And this movie tries to blur both of those lines to be like, it's tense, it's funny, it's tense, it's funny. And after a while, you just end up hating these characters. You're like, no, these people are actually horrible people. They're killing people with no repercussions. And yet again, you get to the sort of same thing we were dealing with in the last film, where you have these characters that do all of these things throughout the film. They definitely should go to jail for it, and people should be able to identify them and put them in jail. And they just go with this happy ending where they adopt a baby in America and they're able to get away from Italy. And oh, you know what? All those murders that happen, it's going to be pinned on somebody who absolutely didn't do anything wrong, and 100% is going to turn around and be like, well, that murder weapon you found? No, I gave it to him the other day. So, and I've got witnesses to prove that. So there's just this logic gap at the end of the film, yet again, where they just expect you to go along with this happy ending because I guess adopting a baby is worth getting out of jail free. Like, that is what the message is in this film. It's like, well, if you're going to adopt a baby, you could commit murder in another country. It's fine. That's the message it sends, and that message didn't work for me. So this movie is number 28. At number 27, we have I Know What You Did Last Summer, another film I was heavily anticipating, another film that really disappointed me. It was fun getting both Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt back in this film. That was really cool, but the premise of this film just took all of the elements from the first movie, even the storyline, the place where the person dies at the beginning. It took all of those elements and just redid them again. It didn't give you anything fresh or anything new. And then when it does try to give you something fresh or something new towards the end of the film, they're also like, oh, by the way, all men are horrible and all men can die immediately, where all women are great, and even if they get stabbed the exact same way that the man was stabbed and get thrown overboard, guess what? they're gonna live. So there's a sort of messaging that was in this movie that didn't really work for me, on top of the fact that the movie was just bland and stale and felt like I had seen it before. So for all those reasons, I Know What You Did Last Summer, not a movie I'm gonna recommend, and it's at number 27. At number 26, we have a horror film called The Ritual. This is an exorcism movie that takes its time to tell you that this is the most documented exorcism in all of exorcism history. And maybe because of that, other movies have stolen elements from the story. So by the time we got this in 2025, it just felt like every exorcism movie I've seen before. There was one moment that did feel fresh, and I was wishing they would have done more with that. And that is that they're doing this exorcism day after day after day with this girl who has these demons inside of her. And each day it's getting worse and worse, and the demons are getting more and more irritated because they know the end is coming up. So towards the third act of this film, the demons actually decide to visit the different people that are performing the exorcism on a nightly basis. They visit them in their rooms, like when they're sleeping. And there's some creepy moments that really worked for me, and I wish the movie had been more like that. Now, I understand they might have been trying to go off of the original story and trying to stay true to it, and so this is just one of the accounts. But again, when you're doing a story that's been done so many times, girl gets possessed, you have a priest that's kind of faltering in his faith, while you have another priest that's very steadfast in his faith, and then you've got this exorcism going on the entire time. Give me something fresh, give me something new. And that's the only element of this film that worked for me, that I really liked, and it was just so here and there. It was like, oh, we did it, and we're going to move back to the exorcism on a nightly basis. Don't get me wrong, there's some good performances in this movie from Dan Stevens and Al Pacino. That's why this movie is better than the other films I've already talked about on this list. But just for its overall bland story, a story that's been done over and over and over, it's not a movie that I would go back to again. I would visit other exorcism movies in the future just because it's been done over and over. That's why it's number 26. At number 25, we have Happy Gilmore 2. This, of course, is the long-awaited sequel to that original Happy Gilmore, bringing back Adam Sandler as the title character, bringing back several characters from that original movie. And because of all that, I was excited about this film. And I did have a fun time with the movie. I did laugh, but overall, this pales in comparison to that original Happy Gilmore film. And I think one of the reasons for that is that this just becomes Cameo Fest, the movie. I don't mind cameos here and there, people showing up like, oh, hey, I know that guy. Oh, hey, I know that guy. But then the movie turned into, oh, hey, I know that guy too. I've seen that guy. Seriously, was there any movie in history that had this many cameos in it? This might be the record holder for people that just show up and are famous, and you're supposed to look at the screen and go, oh, hey, I know that guy, and that doesn't make for a very good movie. Now, I know I'm kind of in the minority on that. A lot of people loved this movie, and so if you loved Happy Gilmore 2, if you had a great time with it, that's awesome. For me, it's a one and done. I watched it. It's not as bad as everything else we already talked about on this list, but I'll never go back to it. Number 24 kicks off the movies that I would watch again. Every movie we've talked about on this list before, I don't think I'd go back to it, but every movie going forward on this list, I would go back, I would rewatch. And so at number 24, we have the film Friendship. Friendship is a comedy that I laughed so much during, starring both Paul Rudd and Tim Robinson. But my biggest drawback from this film, or my biggest issue with this film, was Tim Robinson's character. He was such a weird and quirky guy. He gave us everything that he gives us in the I Think You Should Leave show. But this movie asks the question, what would happen if you stuck with that character for longer than 5 to 10 minutes at a time during these skits? Because that's what you get out of his weird, quirky characters in that show. It's just these 5-minute characters where you're like, whoa, that's crazy. I can't imagine what this guy would be like if I had to watch him for multiple days. And that's what you get in this movie. It's Tim Robinson at his quirkiest, at his craziest in this film. And it's like, what if we take that character that you're used to watching for 5 minutes and we just stretched it out for an hour and a half runtime, and you have to live with this guy and you have to deal with his craziness day after day. And because of that, these little quirky, weird moments that he have really start to pile up, and you end up really not liking his character anymore, which takes away from the overall enjoyment of the film, because you want to enjoy this guy. You want to laugh along with this guy. He's doing something silly or crazy. You're like, that guy's weird. But it just brought up these questions to me personally, like, how did this guy get into the relationship that he's got with his wife? I mean, clearly they're having a hard time right now. Maybe it wasn't always like that, but if he's always been this weird, quirky guy, how did he get her in the first place? Same could be said for his job. How did he get this really nice, well-paying job where he's in the same room as the mayor when this guy is an absolute basket case? It just drops you into this world with him and expects you to believe, oh no, he never had these problems before. They're all starting right now. And maybe you could make that case because he meets up with Paul Rudd, because they become friends, because that friendship breaks down. It does get worse from there, but he was already a really weird guy before that moment. So again, it just made me question, like, why did we need to watch this guy for an hour and a half? Not to the point of not wanting to watch this again. Again, it's a movie I would recommend to people, especially if you like Tim Robinson's style of humor. But yeah, they throw so much at you in this film that after a while it does get a big grading. At number 23, we have the film Nobody 2 that once again brings back Bob Odenkirk as the unlikely assassin Hutch, who this time is just trying to go on vacation with his family, trying to get away from his assassin lifestyle, but he gets dragged back into it by a bunch of criminals who cause some problems, and now he's in the thick of it and has to find a way to save not only his own life, but his wife and kids as well. This movie was fun. If you're there for the action, you're going to have a great time with it. From the gunfights to the hand-to-hand combat fights, knife fights, sword fights, fights in general. If you're there for the action, it's well choreographed. It feels like John Wick with just a goofier premise, because instead of watching Keanu Reeves as this assassin who you believe could kill all these people, you get Bob Odenkirk, who looks like he should be a lawyer, maybe somebody you should call. Instead, though, he's this deadly assassin, so you have this goofier premise. But again, if you're there for the action scenes, you're going to have a great time with this film. For me, the biggest issue I had with this film was definitely the villain. She came off as menacing at first, and then they immediately were like, oh yeah, this is a goofy, quirky movie. We should make her goofy and quirky as well. And I wish they hadn't done that, because they do this whole scene where her character does this whole dance, and it just completely took me out of her being this menacing character. Now she was just another quirky, weird character in this quirky, weird world. I wanted her to be more straightforward, more violent. That would have been more fun, but instead she's just, oh yeah, let me pop my headphones in, do this dance, and now let's go kill Hutch. And at that point I was like, nope, Hutch has the upper hand. It's not going to happen. She's definitely going to die in this movie. And unfortunately, that's the way the film goes. At number 22, we have Jurassic World Rebirth, the 7th entry into the Jurassic franchise, a franchise I've loved ever since I was a little kid. And I think this was a good entry, not better than the original trilogy, not better than Jurassic World, but good in the fact that this course corrected from the previous 2 entries in this franchise. Because I think that both Fallen Kingdom and Dominion completely fell flat for me. Sure, there's some cool dino moments in there, but the storylines, the plots, they were just terrible. Now, this movie had its issues as well when it comes to the plot. That's why I say this was good, in that it was course correcting, because I did take issue with the plot of this film that did feel very rushed, very thrown together, and the movie itself felt like it was just picking and choosing different elements from previous Jurassic movies or even books and mashing them all together. And all of that's made pretty evident when the main plot line of this movie is actually split into 2, where you have 2 groups of people, one, a bunch of mercenaries and scientists that are going back to this Jurassic island to extract dino DNA, and then you've got a family that just happened to be on a boat in the ocean that gets destroyed by a mosasaur, and they all link up together only to get split apart so that the movie could have 2 simultaneously running plot lines that would eventually go back together at the end to fill runtime for the movie. And then leading up to that big ending of the film is my biggest issue with this movie and this franchise in general, in that bigger is not always better. Listen, go back to what you had. You got the dinosaurs from the Jurassic period. You put them in movies. I'm happy. They've made a point in these movies time and time again to go, oh, you know what people want? People want bigger and badder dinosaurs. People aren't going to come back if there's not bigger and badder dinosaurs. And it's kind of a wink to the audience, because they're kind of saying you, the audience, won't come back unless there's bigger and badder dinosaurs. And so each movie recently has sort of had to up the stakes when it comes to dinosaurs to try and get viewers back in the theaters. And it feels so disconnected from the rest of us fans, because in this movie, they do try to go bigger and bolder, and they give us a D-Rex, which is a T-Rex mixed with other dinosaurs, and so it ends up looking like this big Godzilla fighting monster by the end of the film. And that's not what I'm at a Jurassic movie for. I know general audiences might be like, oh, I want something more than just a T-Rex. But I think the majority of moviegoers or people who love this franchise because it's just the dinosaurs from that period, not the mutated dinosaurs that you have to give us now, because you feel like we won't come back to the theater unless there's something new, something scary. Overall, though, while I had my issues with this movie, I still had a fun time with it. It's a movie I would watch again in the future. I just hope that the next time they make a Jurassic film, they take their time with the plot, sort of make it feel a little more serious, make it feel a little more cohesive, and again, chill with the new dinosaurs. Just give us the old, tried and true dinosaurs. That's what we're there to see in the first place. At number 21, we have the action film Fight or Flight. This movie stars Josh Hartnett as an assassin who gets given a mission that's to get on this plane and extract someone. And when he gets to this plane, he finds out that there's a ton of assassins on this plane, almost every other passenger, and they're all told to not only kill the person he's there to protect, but also to kill him. And so now he has to fight his way through this entire airplane, and there's 2 levels, and that was a lot of fun. As far as the action goes in this movie, if you're there for the hard-hitting action, just like the movie Nobody 2, you're going to be impressed. You're going to have a fun time. There's some really fun, hard-hitting action. Because they're on a plane, you can't really use guns, so a lot of it is hand-to-hand, and it's a good time. But everything that happens outside this plane is the reason this movie is still only at 21, because everything that's going on the ground, all the different government agencies that are conniving throughout this film, it was all boring. It was all stuff I didn't need. I get it, you needed it to fill time for the runtime, but I wish they had found a better way to do that, because I wasn't interested in anything going on down there. I was really only interested in everything going on that plane. I wish I had spent more time on that plane, had more fun with the action scenes, given me a few more even, but instead they kept taking you out of the movie, slowing down the pace of this film to go back to the government agencies on the ground that were going back and forth with each other. Would I recommend Fight or Flight? If you're there for the action, absolutely check it out for that. At number 20, we have another streaming film called The Pickup. This movie stars both Eddie Murphy and Pete Davidson. They play a couple of armored truck drivers. Of course, Pete Davidson is the more up-and-coming guy, where Eddie Murphy is on his way out. He's getting ready to retire. They have good chemistry back and forth with each other. Like, it's irritated chemistry, but it's chemistry. And then while they're on their route one day, they get attacked by these criminals led by Keke Palmer's character that want to steal their armored truck so that they can go and do another heist. They get wrapped up into this world, they end up having to do the heist themselves, and it just leads to a bunch of shenanigans throughout the film. Throughout this movie, you get a lot of comedy from Pete Davidson that I thought was really well done. Eddie Murphy has this charm about him that when he's irritated, it's probably his most charming, and so I thought that both of them worked really well together. I had a really fun time with this movie. There's a line towards the end that Pete Davidson says to Eddie Murphy's character that made me laugh out loud, maybe harder laugh than any other movie this summer, and for that reason, I put this movie at number 20. At number 19, we have another streaming film, this one called Heads of State. This film stars both John Cena and Idris Elba. Idris Elba plays the UK Prime Minister, while John Cena plays the newly elected American president. And you find out right off the bat that these two do not like each other. They're at a news conference where they both talk badly about each other to each other, which doesn't look good on the world stage. So it suggested to the two of them that they go to these different places on Air Force One to show that there's unity between the two countries. And so the two of them do go on Air Force One, only for it to be shot out of the sky. They land behind enemy lines. They're the only survivors. Everyone thinks they're dead. And so now they have to fight and fight and fight their way back to safety, all while there's a government conspiracy going on. The movie was fun for a couple of reasons. I thought the back and forth between both John Cena and Idris Elba was a lot of fun. Of course, this is the second time we're seeing them as two characters that don't really like each other, that have to work together, because we saw that in the Suicide Squad a couple of years ago. So I already knew their back and forth was going to be good, and we did get fun back and forth from both of them. The movie also has a lot of comedy coming from John Cena, because he plays this guy who was an actor, turned into politics, who became the president, kind of like Ronald Reagan, but he can't fight. And so when they get into these really dangerous situations, you've got Idris Elba bringing all the action. So if you're there for the action, it's his moments in this film. But then you've got John Cena as this guy kind of bringing up the comedy, where he'll like try fight moves he's had from other movies in the past, but they're not real fight moves. He can't really fight. So it leads to some funny moments. Overall, I had a really fun time with this movie. It's a movie I would definitely recommend to all of you. Check out Heads of State. I think it's still streaming on Amazon Prime. At number 18, we have How to Train Your Dragon. This is, of course, the live action adaptation of that original How to Train Your Dragon film. I'm not the biggest fan of animated movies, so when I heard they were making How to Train Your Dragon into live action, it didn't get me too excited. It was also a PG-rated film, but wow, this movie surprised me. I had a really fun time with this movie, whether it was the comedy aspect, the emotional aspect between the different human characters, or the emotional aspect between the humans and the dragons, about how the dragons weren't really the bad guys, but they were just sort of painted that way because of this big dragon that controls them. You get a really great showdown at the end of this movie between this big dragon and the Vikings and the other dragons. It's really well done. So I had a great time with How to Train Your Dragon. Completely caught me off guard. If you've got kids, you can take them to this one. It's only rated PG, so there's nothing too scary in it for them, which was a little bit of a drawback for me personally. I wish they had gone a little further with the dragons, but I get it. The movie's also for kids. So overall, if you have kids, you can take them to see this one. It's a good time. At number 17, we have Predator: Killer of Killers. This is an animated film that went to Hulu. Because it was animated, I didn't have a lot of hope for it. Once again, I was very surprised with how much I enjoyed this movie. It's directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who directed the movie Prey, which is in the Predator universe, and he's directing Predator: Badlands, which comes out later this year, which is another live-action Predator film. But in the middle of those two films, we get his animated film of Predator: Killer of Killers, where you follow a couple different people through different periods of time go toe-to-toe with the Predator, and when they ultimately win their battle, you see them transported to this location where they then have to have this ultimate Predator fight. And I really like that concept. It felt fresh within this Predator universe. Instead of just another story where a Predator comes to Earth, goes up against a human, they gave you more than that. They gave you, hey, there's a reason they're doing this, and ultimately it leads to another game. And that's made even more evident in the end credits of this film, where you see cartoon versions of different people from the Predator franchise locked in cryostasis chambers. And I thought that was so cool. So I want to see more of this animated land of Predator, and I want to see more of the live actions. Just give me more of it and I'll be happy. At number 16, we have Freakier Friday, and this is a movie that I had so much nostalgic fun with. I love that original Freaky Friday film. My wife loves that movie. My kids love that movie. We all went to see Freakier Friday on opening day together, had a blast at the theater watching this film. And yeah, a lot of that fun is based off the nostalgia that I personally have for that original Freaky Friday film. Bringing back several faces from that original movie did help. And I did think that some of the plot in this film just felt like filler. The fact that they needed to have 4 people swap bodies this time around because it was a sequel was completely unnecessary. You could have just had Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis swap bodies again. It would have been fine to run that play back one more time. Instead, they introduced Lindsay Lohan's character's teenage daughters into this, and it does get a little convoluted, but I still had a fun time with it. It's still a movie I would recommend. I'm probably going to go back to that original movie before going back to this film again, but it's one I could see myself watching in the future. At number 15, we have 28 Years Later. Bringing back Danny Boyle to direct a 28 Years franchise movie got me all kinds of excited. I went back and rewatched and reviewed those original 2 movies in anticipation for this. And while the ending did leave a sour taste in my mouth, I will say that I loved the themes that this movie was going for. The first half of this movie, making it a story about a father and son, a son finding his place in this world, a father trying to navigate this world with a sick wife, going out into the world that's desolate, into the world that's a wasteland with these zombies that are all over the place, the introduction of the alpha zombies who you can barely kill. Those are dangerous. Those are terrifying. Again, the first half of this movie, incredible setup to this movie, incredible setup to the rest of this franchise. And then the back half of this movie did something completely different. And a lot of people don't like the themes of the back half of this film, but I might have loved them even more than the first half, because you've got this son and his mother now going out into the world, and it's a completely different dynamic. When the first half of the movie happens, you've got the father protecting his son, teaching him, but then in the back half of this film, you've got this very sick mother and the son trying to protect her, trying to take her to a doctor, only to take her to a doctor and find out that she's going to die anyway. And so while there's a lot of themes of action and violence in that first half of the film, there's a lot of emotional scenes in that back half of the film, and it really worked for me. I loved all of the different themes they had going on. Of course, until the last 5 minutes of this movie, which almost completely killed this film. Had they not done those last 5 minutes, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I won't go into it here, but if they hadn't done those last 5 minutes, this might be my favorite movie of the year. It was that damn good. Again, those last 5 minutes just didn't really work for me. I am looking forward to what they do with this franchise going forward. We have the next 28 Years franchise film called Bone Temple that comes out in January, so I will be watching that, but I really hope that they fix that issue I had at the end of the film. At number 14, the final comedy on this list, but probably the funniest movie I've seen this year, and that would be The Naked Gun, starring Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin Jr. I really liked what they did with this movie. It was a throwback to those original Naked Gun films while also being something new. There were some really funny moments, one including a snowman that completely caught me off guard, and I really liked my time with that. Overall, I had a great time with The Naked Gun, and it's a movie that I would watch again in the future. It's a movie I want to show people who haven't seen it. I think you'll have a great time with it if you haven't watched it yet. At number 13, we have Dangerous Animals, a thriller film with sharks. You got a psychopath that likes to kidnap people, dangle them over the water at night, and feed them to the sharks slowly while he records them with a VHS camera. All of that works for me. I had such a fun time with this unhinged character, and the people that were trying to get away from him had a very satisfying ending, and overall, it's a movie that I would recommend if you're a big fan of shark films. At number 12, we have Fantastic Four: First Steps. This, of course, is the latest entry into the MCU, a movie that I was really looking forward to. Wanted to see how they were going to introduce the Fantastic Four into the MCU, and I loved the way that they did it. They found a way to have an adjacent universe, so you didn't have all of the characters from the MCU needing to show up in this, and then they were able to play with that world a little more by making it a retro futuristic world, where essentially it's more advanced than our current universe, but they're sort of stuck in the 60s retro look, and that was really cool to me. So I liked the look of this movie, I liked the casting in this movie, I thought all four people playing the Fantastic Four did a really good job, and I loved the villain, bringing in Galactus, making him big and strong and powerful, only to have the Fantastic Four have to be put to their absolute limits to stop him. Also, his main goal in this movie sets up the future of the MCU really well. So there were a lot of things done right in this movie. I had a really fun time with it. So Fantastic Four is number 12. At number 11, we have Clown in a Cornfield. This was a horror movie that I really enjoyed, how they were able to capture that Midwest feeling during the fall, something I've grown up with my entire life. And watching this film in early summer just made me feel like it was fall outside. Like, that's how well done the elements were in this movie, making it feel like an older, sort of rundown Midwest town. While that's my biggest positive of this film, I also really enjoyed the slasher element of this film with this killer clown going around killing different people throughout the town. It might be supernatural, it might be human. Is it someone under the mask? Like, what is going on with this thing? And when you get to the big reveal at the end, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. There's a moment where all of these teenagers are partying out in these cornfields, having a fun time, and oh, it just goes off the rails at that point in the best kind of way. Had a great time with Clown in a Cornfield. I definitely recommend it to horror fans. At number 10, we have another horror film. This one is called Bring Her Back, from the same directors of the film Talk to Me. I was hoping for a really scary time in the theater, and what I ended up getting was a really emotional time in the theater. By the time I left this film, I was emotional about the characters of this film, how poorly these kids were mistreated throughout this film. Like, I know it's just a movie. I know somebody conjured this up, but the elements of emotion in this movie worked for me probably better than any other emotional moments throughout the year. At number 9, we have another MCU film on this list, and it is Thunderbolts. Speaking of emotions, a movie that really focuses on all of these characters and their emotions, their thoughts, their depression. It really focuses in on that, and that's something new to the superhero genre. I really loved what they did with Fantastic Four, but it felt like a superhero movie, whereas this film felt like a deep dive on several different characters who were trying to find their place in this superhero world. So for that reason, I liked Thunderbolts more than I liked Fantastic Four. I loved that these people weren't perfect. I loved that they had problems in their lives and they were trying to deal with them. All the different characters came from different paths of life in this movie, all struggling, all realizing they needed each other. I loved this movie. I had such a fun time with it. At number 8, we have Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, bringing back the president of the movie, Tom Cruise, back to where he should be as Ethan Hunt at the movies. Man, I was excited for this movie. In fact, this was my most anticipated movie of 2025, and maybe I had too much hype going into this because it's not at the top of my list here. It's not number 1. It's not even in the top 5, but I still had a really fun time with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. If this was the final send-off for Ethan Hunt, I think they did a great job with that. I do wish the ultimate villain hadn't been AI. That was the same gripe I had in the previous Mission Impossible film. It's just when it's an AI villain, it just doesn't feel as real as just say a human villain. But they did go back and go over different elements from the past, visiting things like the rabbit's foot from part 3 or just moments from part 1 that really impacted the events of part 8. And I think they did a really great job of tying the entire franchise together. And for that, I had a great time. At number 7, we have a body horror film called Together, a film about a couple who's struggling in their relationship to even stay together, only to have something happen to their bodies that their bodies are wanting to intertwine with each other. And that's where you get the body horror and actually physically keep them together. If you're a big fan of horror, or if you're a big fan of body horror, then I highly recommend you check out Together. You'll have a great time with it. The ending does feel a little bit rushed. I wish they had taken their time with the third act of this film instead of just throwing all this exposition at you, the characters, giving you all these detail, and then coming to an end. It did feel kind of abrupt, but I still had a really fun time with Together. At number 6, we have the 6th entry into a horror franchise with Final Destination Bloodlines. I love the Final Destination franchise. I know it's a movie franchise that's had its up and downs over the years, but the last one that came out, part 5, I absolutely loved. I loved how they were able to tie that movie to that original film, get all the events of these movies sort of linked together. So I was worried that part 6 was going to break that link up, but they do a great job sort of telling a standalone story that does impact other characters of this universe, does sort of build on the legacy of this franchise without destroying what came before it. You get some pretty nasty kills in this movie. Death is out doing its thing, and you get a great send-off to Tony Todd's character. Overall, Final Destination Bloodlines was everything that I wanted it to be, and I thought it set up a great future for this franchise going forward. We've cracked the top 5, and at number 5, we have House on Eden. This is a found footage horror film that I had a great time with. I've said it before on this channel, but I believe this is found footage done right. It's made for a very small budget, and because of that small budget, it felt like it made them be more creative, and so it felt like these YouTubers who were actually going on a haunting investigation, a paranormal investigation. You have this group of people that go out with these different cameras that you get to see different cuts of throughout the film, which also is something that I really love. How that was spliced together, I have no idea because of what happens to these characters. Again, I had a really fun time with the movie overall and the found footage element. At number 4, my favorite horror movie of the year so far, we have Weapons, directed by Zach Krieger, who had previously directed the film Barbarian, which was a movie that went like several different ways throughout the film. Like, you could not predict how that movie was going to go. So when I heard he was directing another horror film, I got excited about it. The trailers for this movie were really well done. They didn't really give too much away other than a group of kids from a classroom completely go missing one day. Nobody knows what happened to them. There's some footage around the neighborhood of these kids running away into the darkness, but nobody knows where they went to. And so you've got this school teacher from this classroom who's looked at pretty badly by the town now, since all the kids from her class are missing, who's trying to figure this out, while you also have another dad played by Josh Brolin who's trying to figure this out, all while there's some really creepy, nasty stuff going on in this town. If you haven't seen Weapons yet, I highly recommend it. If you have seen it, is it your favorite horror movie of the year? If not, let me know what is. That brings us to the top 3 for summer movies of 2025, and at number 3, my favorite superhero movie of the year so far is Superman. Superman, of course, directed by James Gunn, kicking off this new DC universe, a very comic book feeling universe, a universe where aliens have existed for a long time. It's nothing to see an alien come to Earth and have to fight with the Justice Gang that's comprised of Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl, and maybe even Superman down the line. Along with those superheroes, you also have other characters that I thought were perfectly casted in this film, like Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, who's a generational hater that you love to see. Overall, Superman felt like a fresh kickoff to this DCU, and that's what we needed after so many years of it being back and forth with the DCEU. I look forward to what James Gunn does in the future. At number 2, we have a racing film called F1, starring Brad Pitt as a Formula One race car driver, a guy that just wants to go fast. He just wants to climb the mountain, but then he doesn't want the glory. He just wants to leave after that. And that's when he's called in by his friend, played by Javier Bardem, who owns a Formula One race car team, and he wants him to come in and drive for him. Once he gets there, there's some animosity between him and the other driver on the team, which leads to some emotional moments in the film. But really, my biggest positive for this movie, and the reason I'm making it number 2, is the way that this movie is filmed. The racing scenes are so edge of your seat the entire time. They're filmed so well. This director also directed Top Gun Maverick, so if you liked how those plane scenes looked, where Tom Cruise was up in those planes flying around, well, that's what you get in this movie, except you get Brad Pitt in a Formula One race car. This movie was done right on so many levels. Again, the storytelling was great, the emotion was great, and the way these race places were filmed just kept you invested the entire time. That'll lead me to my number one pick for summer of 2025. And at number one, we have from the world of John Wick, Ballerina. This movie, of course, brings in Ana de Armas as a very lethal ballerina from the world of John Wick, where those ballerinas are trained from childhood to become lethal assassins. The movie is her movie. She's going around killing people the entire time, but the third act brings in the Baba Yaga himself, John Wick. That's right, Keanu Reeves shows up in this movie because it takes place between parts 3 and parts 4, so John Wick is still alive, and he shows up in this franchise initially to go one-on-one with the ballerina, and that is where I think this movie really shines, is that while she is better than 99% of the people in this film, she's not better than John Wick. They didn't sacrifice any of John Wick's legacy or his character to push this new character. They showed you, hey, John Wick still is that guy. But then they team up in this film and it's just so much fun. You've got this entire layout of a town of assassins who live in this town, and now they are all after both John Wick and the ballerina, and the fight and the shootouts, they're just so much fun. Guys, if you haven't seen Ballerina and you're a fan of the John Wick universe, do yourself a favor, treat yourself, watch this movie, because it is my favorite movie of summer 2025. And guys, those are all 33 of the movies that I had a chance to see in summer of 2025, ranked from worst to best. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you have a ranked list of all the movies you saw this past summer, we'll throw that down in the comment section down below. I'd love to know what your list is. And finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my summer 2025 movies ranked from worst to best video. I do wish I didn't have to do it in this hotel room, but you gotta record when you have time, and this is when I had the time to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave your list in the comments section. And finally guys, if you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my best and worst of 2025 right there, and I've got all of my 2025 movie reviews right there.